Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm happy to accommodate this presentation in my day full of very important presentations. I'd like to take a little bit of your time to talk about an important trend and series of concepts, topics that I think are going to be very relevant, contextual for you. These are things that I have done in my career. I'm Troy Hitch. Got my start, my modest start at NKU, a theater student, and I came out of school and I did some acting and directing and some writing, which led to me immediately disengaging from theater and putting a portfolio together to become an illustrator. I got some great assignments working on the Star Wars line with Kenner, and the now celebrated property Mummies Alive, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. I then was able to re-engage my acting skills to become a voiceover artist. I became the voice of several Tonka toys, Chomper, My Talkin' Truck Bot, Mike the Mower, among others. Massive holiday winners, and I'm sure on toy shelves today still. But that was when I got a big moment of truth, and I decided that I needed to do these things on my own. I needed to be able to pioneer and use my skills to make even bigger and better things, and I created a company called Big Fat Brain. Big Fat Brain, out of the gate, had a pretty amazing success, series that we created called You Suck at Photoshop that went on to be named one of Time Magazine's top 10 TV episodes of the year. It won awards. It was noted 100 million video views and counting across 3 seasons, and it helped us to understand how to leverage distributed storytelling in a digital world. I then went on to create original content, original series for the Sundance Channel, a series called Ringtone, which was about 2 brothers who were composers, and they were competing against each other. The one brother had a sex addiction and was having an affair with his wife's puppet. She did a show for public television. Then created a series for Adobe called Agency of Record, about 2 washed-up creative directors who were disconnected from reality and trying to find their way back to their art. My pioneering didn't stop there. I continued to blaze trails and plant flags of promise everywhere. This was a series for Discovery Channel's Planet Green, called Green Shaman, an animated series about a polar bear, a dead polar bear's ghost that haunts a hipster DJ and cajoles him into being even more eco-friendly. What was I thinking then? Lots of things. And it was time for me to expand me into even bigger possibilities. And so I joined a company called Barefoot Proximity and started a discipline called Proximity Branded Entertainment. We were able to work with the likes of Warner Brothers, helping them launch digital series in breakthrough interactive experiences in social, digital, H+, another series at Warner Brothers. But that wasn't enough. My ascent to the ascension that I was working toward had no bounds. And so I fought further into the Midwest to Chicago, where I became the executive creative director at BBDO in Chicago, pitching and winning Rosetta Stone and their new Smaller World campaign, leading what ultimately became Facebook's most successful branded engagement experience, Lay's Do Us a Flavor, where you submit flavors for chips and then people vote on them. Over 1 billion organic impressions in the first year alone. But I couldn't stop there. I needed to continue to define the undefinable. And I returned to Barefoot Proximity in the role as Chief Innovation Officer, where I am now an acclaimed thought leader. The leadership that I provide with my thought is profound, industry shaking. I'm a speculatist. I'm an artificial intelligencist. Recently was qualified as a trans-presentationalist, which I'm very excited to be sharing with you at this moment right now. I'm publishing all kinds of content. I recently took on the challenge of wearing an Oculus Rift continuously for an entire year. And I'm taking one of my 1-hour breaks each day to have this conversation with you before I have to put it back on again. I'm exploring the decline of human intimacy in this connected world. This is a story that I wrote across several months about drone operators using their drones to have sex with other people's drones. It's really the way that we're disconnecting as humans is fascinating. Foster Snap, the Uber of foster parenting. You've maybe heard about this in the news, starting out west. They want to take the same principle of shared economy and apply it to the struggles of the foster parenting community. These kids need to spend time with meaningful role model adults. And so you can open up the app, say, I'm available, and within 30 minutes, a van will drop off a foster child for you to spend time with. For 240 minutes, you are the legal guardian of that child. Fascinating innovations in the marketing space. But beyond that, I've got hobbies and other artistic interests, how I desire to express myself. I was actually, again, from a pioneering standpoint, an early adopter of Vine, and I became the first shortlisted 6-second film series in Tribeca Film Festival for my trilogy entitled Mornstash. I'm currently designing and developing a mobile game called Gary Fleckner Hearts Ice Cream. This will be available on iOS and Android in the next few months. And my newest endeavor is I'm exploring, I'm an illustrator. I'm working on a series of figure drawing with myself as the model. And it's had absolutely amazing results. Any questions? Let me stop you right there and guess what you might be thinking. WTF. Who do you think you are? What gives you the right? How dare you? How dare you waste our valuable time in this established institution? We paid $0 to get in here today, but our time is valuable. And you didn't even, have the courtesy to get dressed and come in. Who do you think you are? I think I said it before. I'm Troy Hitch. Hi, I'm the real Troy Hitch. Or am I? Thank you for indulging me there for a moment. When Jeremy and Creative Mornings reached out to me to talk about the theme humility, it was actually a really great coincidence. I had just given a presentation at BBDO University in Paris to creative directors around, ego. And how to do you see what I just did? What did I just do? I had to tell you that I gave this big highfalutin presentation in France, didn't I can't stop. Okay? All right, back on track. This presentation that I gave was called The Egoless, Egoistic Creative Leader, and that's what I want to share a little bit with you today. Ego is a very interesting thing, and how many folks, just because I'm not super familiar with this community, how many folks work in a creative business, creative agency, creative role? Okay, great. And for how many of those folks would you call yourself like an advertising agency or a marketing firm? Okay, kind of like half of that. Okay. What I'm going to share with you is born of that industry, the advertising industry, but I think that there will be a lot of relevant stuff here. And while I speak about creative leader, I don't just mean design directors, creative directors. I mean anyone who has to lead the creation of stuff, and hopefully that will apply. Why ego? Why is ego so important in this industry? I mean, as creative people, of course we have egos. We have to have egos in order to persevere, to break through stuff, to get to good ideas, to be able to sell those ideas, to be bold, confident without being cocky. Ego is really critical to what we do. And I have a theory on this, because if you look at the advertising industry all the way back to the very beginning, it was built on the names of the people who created the agencies. David Ogilvy, arguably the father of modern advertising, one of the greatest, very inspiring guy to me, has written a lot of great books. I'm not going to show you this video, but a quote that he has in here, he talks about himself for the first 5 minutes of this video. And he has the right to do that. He's David Ogilvy. But one of his quotes is really, really interesting. If you can't advertise yourself, what hope have you of being able to advertise anything else? We rely on our egos to be able to do the work that we do. And it's not limited to David Ogilvy. If you look around the rest of the space, Leo Burnett, another very interesting, big personality. Anybody ever worked for the Burnett company? Yep, okay, great. So Leo, it haunts the halls at Leo Burnett. I mean, his presence is still felt there tangibly. All of the little things, his pencils, the apples that they eat in the mornings, all the stuff that made the agency because Leo said so is all still there. In fact, when you come on board, you watch this video of a speech that Leo gave about when it's okay to take his name off the door. The only time it's okay to take Leo Burnett's name off the door is when you fuck up the agency. When you've gone and you've sold out and you're doing it just to make the money and you're not pushing yourselves to get better ideas, that's when Leo wants you to take his name off the door. But as long as you're doing really great work, it stays up there. And interestingly enough, every year they have this thing called the Burnett Breakfast, and it's this massive party that starts in the morning and goes like for 36 hours. They get people in from all over the world, and they celebrate the company and the culture. And one year, a creative director that I hired in Chicago during my stint actually worked on the show. They do a giant, like multi-$100,000 show for the employees, and this one was called Leo on Ice, where they imagined that Leo Burnett was cryogenically frozen and that they thawed him out to see what he thought about advertising today. So his spirit still lives. And, what did I do? What did I just do? Anybody catch that? You know who Leo Burnett is. You're not really sure who I am. The creative director I hired, Ricky somebody, is my connection to Leo Burnett. I had to bolster up my ego right there in that moment to make that connection. Borrowed equity off of Leo Burnett for me. So this name over the door, you may not realize this, but BBDO is actually the names of the people that started BBDO 280 years ago, whenever it started. Batten, Barton, Durstein, Osborne, which somebody said sounds like a trunk falling down a flight of stairs once. All of these names, all of these acronyms are people's names that built these, Young and Rubicam, Robert Greene Associates, Droga, Crispin Porter Bogusky, D.M. and Darvin and Lavin, DDB. personalities drive this business, and it doesn't stop here. I mean, we even in our market, Gary Possible started Possible about 30 years ago. Ian and Liam Rockfish, the Rockfish brothers. Doug Barefoot Proximity. When Doug started Barefoot Proximity, and a coincidence that we were acquired by a company called Proximity, it saved us hundreds on business cards. The only outlier, the only anomaly is Northlick, which is a word they just made up. So why do we do this? Because there is something that hums underneath the surface. The south of France, every year, Cannes is the big thing where all these people go to just put their egos on display and be recognized and rewarded and get the acclaim and accolades that they so greatly desire for the work that they do. And if you're lucky enough to just get to go, you may actually get to go to the show, maybe even get up on stage, end up at one of the huge parties outside the Carlton, go to the gutter bar, and it all ends like this, ultimately. Cannes is the worst experience in the world. It's just terrible. But it's reality. And no matter how much we say we're in it for the art, no matter how much we say that we're doing this out of passion, awards, money, all of this drives us to the conclusions, and we have to figure out how to navigate that and still do good as we're doing the work. Lee Clow, big personality. He's the guy who came up with the Apple 1984 spot. He says creative people are 50% ego, 50% insecurity. We're constantly riding that rail, trying to keep from crashing and burning and then accidentally having massive successes. There's no bigger ego than this one, right? I mean, this is a person who built an entire empire. I would say transformed humanity with his single vision that he was a terrible person. We know this now about, I mean, things are coming out every day. I mean, he was practicing witchcraft. There were questions about, missing employees, interns. But for all of it, he had a vision, and he was unwavering in it, even if it meant, like, destroying his own family and his own life. And when we straddle that rail between ego and insecurity, ego and sense of entitlement, the bad side of that's called egotism. We're egotistical. It means we let ego get the best of us. We let ego override our senses. See this a lot, right? It's about the centrality of the me. And it's allowing you to place yourself at the core of your world with no concern for others. And that's where it becomes troublesome. This guy's a big cliche, right? But he's actually a really interesting, well-formed model for the stuff that we still see today in the advertising world. Now, I suspect many of you have seen Mad Men, and you understand this is Don Draper. He's a creative director in 60s era, Madison Avenue craziness of advertising. He gets himself into trouble a lot. This was a moment in time in his career when he let his ego get in the way. He had just come back from the Clio Awards, like a lunchtime award show, and they drank themselves silly, and he came back and thought he could master this pitch that they were giving to Life cereal, and he completely blew it, completely biffed it. Ego gets in our way, makes us stumble, and creates something that we call hubris. This is, going back to Greek mythology, it's being punished by the gods for extreme pride or self-confidence. And when we let ourselves get to that place, that's where disaster occurs. Tracy Wong says, ego above all is the biggest, most consistent tragic flaw of a creative person, the greatest impediment to better creative work. It stalls thinking, it thwarts collaboration, it can keep you from the big idea. It can even sabotage entire careers, or worse yet, hijack entire agencies. Says Tracy Wong of the agency called Wong Duty, named after Tracy Wong. The irony is dripping off of this slide. But this is great because this is someone who's trying to strike that balance. What we're trying to avoid, what all of these people are trying to avoid, is this: that we somehow can even the playing field, and everybody has a fair shot, and everybody's work is good enough and great, because that ultimately is more disastrous than an ego out of control. But we've got to figure out how to get it into the right place. What does it look like today? You know, when Don Draper was around, things were quite different. Even just 10 years ago in this industry, things were quite different because the media companies managed the spend, the big ad agencies, the idea came from the TV spot, and then everything else sort of, you know, found its way into the other channels. But now we know, because we're in such a connected world, and that we require a deeper, more meaningful connection with consumers, that we can't just get away with that. There are no more Alex Boguskis, says Ad Age. We can't handle these personalities anymore, because it's not enough to say, hey, we got the name, we hired the name, we got the hotshot art director to come here, or we got the hotshot creative director, writer to come here. It's not good enough. You need the people who understand how to lift the hood and make things work in social, in digital, in direct, and in long-term relationship building and CRM. It's not good enough just to have that one big idea. And there's a lot of reasons that this is occurring, because the new landscape is forcing us to have multi-agency partnerships. We're forced to work with other agencies, and we have to share the ownership of the idea. The multi-channel, multimedia marketing plans, it is complex. It is full of opportunities, but lots and lots of challenges. And more important is that there are consumers out there who have figured out how to sniff out advertising and do not give a damn about what you have to say about your brand. So the way we have to think has to change. I mentioned Lay's Do Us a Flavor. It was a very successful campaign, in no part due to me, I assure you. I was just there to kind of see a lot of the greatness happening. There were a lot of agencies at play, a lot of complexity on the client side, a lot of drama as we're trying to get agencies coordinated. To get to this kind of work takes a lot of swallowed pride and a lot of ego control. Not diminished ego, but ego control. That gets us to this idea of egoism, the healthy use of the ego, the place where we can be bold and confident without being cocky and jerky. Here's a pretty ego-driven guy. If being an egomaniac means I believe in what I do and in my art or music, then in that respect, you can call me that. I believe in what I do, and I'll say it. That's the kind of boldness that we need. Now, this guy got himself into trouble, for sure, but that's the spirit that we look for. This is, I'm not going to play this video, but if you've seen Mad Men, more than likely you've seen this scene, and I would encourage you to go watch it on the internet. This is the scene where Don Draper does the legendary carousel pitch, and what he does is he draws from his own personal experience. He's struggling with his family, with his wife, and he's selling Kodak on the wheel is what they're calling it. It's the slideshow wheel. And he tells them it's not a wheel, it's a carousel. It takes people through time. And as he's doing it, he's seeing pictures of his family that he put up on the wall. Ad executives are crying in the room, and it's a beautiful moment. This is when ego is used for good, not evil. So ultimately what we want to get to is egotism is about me being important. Ego is about me delivering value. And that's what we seek in the creative world, contributing with value. When we do that, we can create a meritocracy, a place where people are rewarded for the value that they provide, the good work that they do. And this is something that I've always held to be true, that when you get better work out of people, you get better work. And that comes from an experience that is, as I came up as a creative leader, became a creative director, and as I've guided others up that way as well, this is a truth. This is for real, that there's a point in your life, especially as a creative, when doing becomes less important than leading. And it's not something that you can just switch on or off, because this is a really hard thing for us to let go of. And that stuff I showed you up at the beginning, I still want to make things. I still want to do stuff. I want to create a video game and piss my family off, which is what I'm doing right now. But in order to do my job right, as a creative leader, I have to lead. Which means at some point, I've got to have an aha moment where I realize I'm more personally rewarded by the success of others than of myself. And that's what I call the ego epiphany. It's that moment when you realize, oh my God, that was so awesome to have my art director have their idea win in the meeting, or to see that team come together and break through the challenges I know they've had with their dynamic. When you hit that, that's when the magic stuff happens. So how do we do that? What are the 4 key points to doing that? It starts with ownership, actually really surrendering ownership to others. Being able to give over an idea and know that it's probably not going to come back the way that you wanted it to, but it's more important for you to let them get there and help them get to the next stage than it is for you to get them out of the way and do it yourself. Give them opportunity. Define those roles clearly and let them earn an ownership stake. They're going to work longer, harder, faster. Accountability. With that ownership comes responsibility. So people have to be responsible for their actions with each other and with the work that they're doing. Share the glory. You know, if you look on Agency Spy, or you look at any of the award shows, what's the first name at the top of the credits for the awards? Chief Creative Officer, then Executive Creative Director, then Creative Director, then Art Director. When you can start to flip that table around and say, hey, this producer who made this video happen was like, we couldn't have done it without them, that's when you start to see the change in the team and in yourself as a leader. And then ultimately, the humility. You've got to be able to own the failure. You've got to be able to be as exposed and vulnerable as your team in order to gain that credibility and trust. So what does it look like moving from an egotistic autocracy to an egoistic meritocracy? 2 really big words that make me feel pretty good about this presentation. Moving from I and you to a we made up of I's, not losing the sense of individuality, but understanding that the individuals come together to form the more important group. Move from move, I'll show you, to show me better. Sending somebody back to the well to do it again and again and again and again is frustrating for them. That's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to get to the next place. From pull up and prop up to guide as they rise. So get out of the way and let people kind of succeed and excel. And as they go along, get some of the obstacles out of the way. Moving from burn and churn to a much deeper dive topic, Darwinistic development, but allowing things to evolve versus just killing stuff, killing, waiting for the next thing to come along. And then, of course, bold decisions are critical. I had 20 minutes, and I ripped through past that, so I think we're going to go to questions. Is that right? Great. Oh, thanks, Jeremy. Any questions?
Can you talk about some ways or approaches or practices that can allow someone to have an ego epiphany? Like, what are some things a person can do to lead them toward this?
Yeah, well, I think the question was, what are some things you can do to get to the ego epiphany? The reality is, I've experienced this, it's a sort of a natural occurrence. It's when you're ready, you're ready. However, there are lots of different tools that we use in order to get to a more collaborative environment and processes that allow more people to participate. There's a tool that BBDO has as a global network called The Workout, and I'm sure other agencies have similar tools, but it's an intense collaboration session, scientifically engineered to get to ideas in about 48 to 72 hours. That's a place where people can kind of like come in, lose their title, lose their rank, become one of many that are working towards getting to a big idea, getting to something together. Those are the moments where I think as a leader, as a creative leader, you see many more coaching opportunities than if you're just standing around waiting for somebody to show you something over a 2 or 3 week design period. So getting into a room and working together is a great place to begin to plant the seeds for the epiphany. Any other? Yep.
Do you see much difference having worked in Chicago and Cincinnati market-wise, egos and things like that?
Yes, much of a difference between Chicago and Cincinnati. Stark differences. The churn and burn thing that I was talking about, Chicago is not unlike New York in that I think the average stay for any creative at an agency is between 13 and 18 months. The turnover rate is massive. And not only that, it's expected. So when you hire somebody on, you know you're not going to be seeing them at the next Christmas party, basically. And the reason why is because I think it's somewhat of a still sort of foolhardy mindset that you're going to get work, you're going to get the best people in, and you're going to try and pound the work out of them. And when you've done that to the point where they're done, they can't take it anymore, and they move on, you get the next one in. This whole principle is around, you only get to great work when you have great people. And every cent, every minute that you invest in fostering a great person is going to pay off exponentially more than if you're just getting hot shots coming in through the door. So Chicago was very different. I was very excited to come back to Cincinnati after being gone for 2 years during this whole renaissance and seeing just how much the culture around here is transformed, how people are working together, like the Cosign project in Northside, things like that, where it's like people just are hungry to get together and kind of share ideas and make stuff together, and I love it. And I'll tell you, the thing about barefoot proximity, I assure you I'm not shilling, but okay, I'm shilling. Barefoot proximity is founded on a culture of people who want to be there, who want to work together. That is our primary focus. Our CEO, Chris Evans, has done an amazing job of investing in talent development and just making sure that we got the right chemistry and the right dynamics, because when you have the right people, you get to the right work.
Would you like to make a comment on egos and financial compensations within the creative industry?
Interesting. Would I like to make a comment on the relationship between egos and financial compensation? I would. Who's next? No, I don't know. It's a tough one. Again, I think it has to do with the market. I think the people who have the ego under control and who understand the egoism version of it versus egotism, compensation is part of the whole equation, and they have a better sense of, it's like those baseball players that are like, or the professional basketball players who are like, take a pay cut so they can bring the other guy in, because what they really want to do is win the ring. And they're not diminishing their value at all, but they're saying, like, I'm more interested in contributing to the whole. However, egos have to be fueled, and really good, talented people have to be adequately compensated. So again, it's striking a balance. But again, like in Chicago, I saw the throw the money at it and try to fix it kind of solution, and it was a disaster. You end up with a bunch of high-priced assholes that just aren't making it better.
What kind of checks and balances did you use to keep a creative ego versus a destructive ego?
Well, I talked about some of them. I know I kind of whipped through those principles. To me, I think the hardest thing for me personally is giving up the idea to other people. And allowing that precious little baby to go walking outside and like watching the cars go by and everything. It's like, I know he's old enough to walk to school, but I can't. So for me, one of those checks and balances was this sort of graded scale of acceptability of work. Let me explain. I got to a point where I got very comfortable knowing that my team was going to get an idea 80% of the way, and that by making the investment in the team getting there together themselves, that was worth more than me getting it to 95% of the way. And when I started to understand that, now, the onus I put on myself was the next time they bring the idea in, it's got to be at 85%. And then it's got to be at 90%. And it's not going out the door until it's at 110%. But knowing that we're going to take a little bit more time, I've got to be patient. I've got to see this stuff get to where it goes. And what I realized along the way is, hey, dumbass, you don't always have the best ideas. In fact, now I rarely have the best ideas. Because when you foster that group of people, they think better and faster and smarter than you do anyway. And once you harness that, then you can get the big pay because you're big, fancy creative director. Yep.
So I'm like really, really good at egoism, and
Tell me more.
no, but I feel like there's if you're marketing yourself, if you're trying to sell yourself and your own ability as a leader, I feel like there's people want to hear what you've done, and if what you recognize to be your strength is being with really great teams who have better ideas than you do.
Yep.
What's a way to represent that, I don't know, to someone who may not be familiar with egoism and
Yeah, well, I think if you start from the work out, then that's where the stories come from. So when you're showing great work, whether it's a portfolio review, you're looking for a job, or you're pitching to a company to try and win their business. And let me tell you how powerful it is to go pitch a Fortune 100 company and name the other agency partners that contributed to the work that you did, because that says a lot about you as an agency and how you work and how you think about your role in the system. I think the story that you tell around the work is where it can be most powerful, because you can start to name people by name, or you can talk about the process that you went through, how you were able to get people past obstacles, how you were able to accelerate their collaborative efforts, and that I think that can be a very powerful story. And again, you still walk away looking like a hero, just a better, smarter, humbler hero, I think.
What advice would you give to a creative that might be agency gun-shy after doing the churn and burn, and should they avoid agencies altogether, or say screw it and go on their own?
Yeah, the question is, what do you do? The advice I would give to an agency person who's kind of been through the ringer and doesn't want to get, once bitten, twice shy kind of a thing. Do your homework. And I think nowadays it's easier than ever to see what culture looks like at an agency. I think so many agencies are being really transparent about how they work and the people that they have there and the lifestyle that they're trying to live. So I think getting a sense of the agency ahead of any sort of interaction is probably pretty key. Part of it is, though, you just have to kind of close your eyes and jump and hope that the next one is better. But I think there are a lot more ways to detect it now than ever before.
So, how do you think you can sort of tame and win over the egoist? If I think they kind of bark like dogs, right? You're in a room and it's louder and louder and louder.
Yeah.
And what are the alternatives?
Are you talking about egotists? Yeah, how do you win over an egotist?
By not playing their game.
They have to fall flat on their face at some point and discover it themselves. There's no talking an egotistical person down off of that ledge, because they got up there all their own, and they are the king, So if you can engineer some sort of disaster to occur, pull the rug out in the client meeting, or no, I'm kidding. But there is just like the ego epiphany. I think it has to happen naturally, where somebody's like, I am a douchebag. Like, I have blown this. It's me. Like, I did this. I'm this way because of me, not because I'm not getting paid enough, not because my idea didn't get bought by the client, not because the account person doesn't get along with me. It's about self-awareness, and I don't know that you can. I think I would say as an executive leader in a company, I'd have that conversation as much as I could, but sometimes you got to get them out. I mean, those people are very dangerous in a community like that.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I think it is a lot of too just leading by example. Like even
Yeah.
if you're not that top dog person.
Yep.
Because we do a lot of partner work with agencies in New York, so we have a lot of egos coming at us that affect our day-to-day work and our motivation. And I think sometimes it is just saying we are taking the high road, celebrating small wins, and it's leading by example. So that,
Yeah.
like you said, when they fall flat on their face, like we kind of come out on top, but we're not brooding about it. Like we
Yeah.
have that self-awareness.
That's good. That's a good point.
There's not a lot you can do about
Yeah, leading by example is, absolutely critical, for sure. And you're right, that told you so doesn't have to be verbalized. I think they start to see the writing on the wall, and that's where you hope they kind of make the connection and can get to the next place. I saw a few more hands. What, in the back?
So while you wait for that and are unable to induce that self-awareness, how do you manage up when you're managing,
Oh,
when you're working under
that's a good one.
an egotist?
That's a really good one. Can you fire up? I talk to HR first and see if that's a possibility. That's a tough one. Yeah, because and that's truer in this industry than anywhere, because there are still plenty of egotistical creative leaders out there. And by the way, that's not to say that they're 100% wrong. Those people are still doing good work. They're just, the nature of the work is so destructive, the way they get to where they're going. They're missing out on so many opportunities. So I think that's the place more than any I think, where you would want to lead by example and demonstrate up to your leadership how you work, what you seek, what the value that you seek in your role, and how to get to better work, how to get to better team dynamics, how to get to a better client relationship. Demonstrating that through action is going to be revelatory for a manager who has their heads up their asses.
I'm thinking about the separation between church and state.
Okay?
And the creative silo versus the business silo.
Yep.
And obviously both of them have ego issues to deal with. And I'm just wondering from your perspective, how have you been able to bridge those two silos in that particular time?
Yeah, that is a tough one. And it's not just the egos. I think there are, we are part of a publicly held, the largest holding company in the world, advertising holding company in the world. Finances rule our world, and so it's sometimes not ego, it's just simple math that gets in the way of maybe hiring that great person that you want to hire or giving somebody a raise that really needs a raise. So there are just inherently struggles in that system anyway. When I think about a business leader, like an account person, trying to get to common ground with a creative person, it is a very simple formula, but it's so often overlooked, and that is just concentrating on the work, solving the problem for the client. When you're working to solve the brand's problem, everybody's issues go away, because if you can get to a really great brief that you can agree on, that's a challenge all itself. And you are truly stewards of the brand, working to solve your client's business problem, it does great work to ameliorate a lot of the conflict between the two. You still have hard and fast decisions that need to be made, but I've always believed that when you focus on the work, you can derail a lot of that drama. How are we doing on time, Jeremy? One more? Okay. Did I miss a bit? Yeah.
Do clients care about ego? Like, does the client find it now? Do clients care about ego?
Do clients care about ego? Yes, they do, actually, quite a bit. And here, I'll explain why. If you are going in to tell your client how to spend $5 million this year, they need to believe that the person who's sitting across the table from them is confident in that decision, can follow through and make it happen. So there's great equity in ego in that moment to be able to say, hold my hand, let's walk down this path and do something bold together, or let's do something expensive together, or let's change the industry. We'll keep you from getting fired, trust me, we'll do this right. It takes a lot of ego to get there. That's the egoism part of it. That's where it's so important to have a healthy ego. But even still in that moment, to know that it's not all you're doing, that you're going to rely on the client to be able to get it to that next place. And so there has to be a sense of humility and sharing, even in that moment, to say, we're going to do it together. That's the balance.
Can you say like one final good thought to take away from this as Donnie? From his point of view?
As Donnie?
Yes.
Donnie Hoyle is a character in You Suck at Photoshop, whose life was crumbling around him. You never see Donnie. He's just a voice on a screencast, but his wife is leaving him. He is infertile. And there's all kinds of trauma. So Donnie would probably say something like, strap on your stupid and drop your ego. So it was not as funny as it probably would have been if everybody had seen the show. But great way for me to end on a humble note. Thank you, everybody.